Heno, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Just glad to be here. Been watching the podcast and aware of what you've been doing in the space. So glad we can come together for a very important conversation. How are you
Likewise,
feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm a collector of yours. You've been on my radar for a minute now. I feel like I've collected two of your things at this point, and then we also met at one of like the crypto events, I think
Yeah,
in
I
New
think it was
York
in
or
New York
something.
or yeah, something.
Yeah. So a long time coming, well
Yeah,
overdue, but we're here now. I think a
yep.
good place to start, Heno, is who are you, man? What does the world need to know about you? And how did you get your start into crypto?
Word. Okay, for those who don't know me, my name is Heno. I'm a first generation Ethiopian Eritrean artist, producer, overall creative. And I'm from Tacoma Park, Maryland. I got into Web3 about a year and a half ago. I would say like last April. And it was shout out to Tara Moves, who's a visual artist that I really work with a lot. And she was very adamant about me getting into Web3 and utilizing NFTs and stuff because of my intentionality and my storytelling, which I come from traditional music too. Done a lot of like touring shows, performances or like collaborations, just stuff like that. And yeah, so she was just like, and it kind of opened me into like understanding, I guess, what I've noticed in traditional music, which was like conversations are more around like marketing and like what's the single more than like the
Sure.
stories. So when I started to join Twitter spaces and Clubhouse and just kind of hearing the conversations around music, people really did care about like intentionality and storytelling in a way that I aligned with, and kind of saw a space for me to tell my truths and really connect off of that. And from there, kind of just spending the first 6 months just learning. I didn't want to rush for the process of that because I think that it honestly does you good to take your time in Web3 and to like understand things. So I was just showing up in Twitter spaces, showing up, hearing conversations, and people would say things like smart contract or, just, and I would watch videos. So I would just take my time watching a few videos a day for like 6 months, and eventually
Wow.
felt comfortable enough to, I was reaching out to people. I would like listen to people's drop parties and hear their stories, and then just, reach out and say, hey, like what you're doing is great. Keep it up. Like, I don't need
Right.
anything for you. I'm not shilling my project. I just wanted to like organically just reach out and show love. And over months of doing that, I kind of started to build that community with people I kept seeing, because you see the same people over and over at certain points when the more you're really in it. And I went to my first IRL experience in Atlanta. Shout out to Black NFT Art and Umbadaima. They really they had brought me onto minting my Genesis NFT, which was like a animation by Don Jaye, and that they paired me with for a record I put out. Um, and yeah, they it from there I kind of just met a lot of people in the space that I'd been seeing, but more importantly, I was at an IRL experience that I saw a lot of people who looked like me, and I didn't realize how important that was to like really connect with people in the space that shared similar perspectives and stories. And that was very powerful for me. And shout out to NFT Now, because they were really like adamant seeing me perform and showing my work and speaking about it. They had invited me to NFT NYC, and we're just like, you need to come check this out. Like, and I did. And from there, I kind of just started going to all the events, that got, the art Basels, the South by Southwest, all the NFT LAs, just even helping organize and be a part of NFT Oakland. And that was crazy, just kind of learning what we've learned and being able to bring Web3 and empower artist communities that I have
Sure.
close ties to. And it just was like a whirlwind of stuff, and being able to just sell out on all of the NFTs I've been dropping on like Zora, or collaborations with Mick Jenkins or like Toro y Moi, or being a part of the Snoop Dogg drop at Sound, doing stuff on Catalog, just
You've been
every
everywhere.
it's been
Yeah.
kind of crazy. So fast forward a year and a half later, I've always been community oriented too, even outside of Web3. Before Web3, I've done a lot of volunteering at different organizations, whether that's for the LAUSD, helping with public schools, whether that's People's Program in Oakland, Little Sisters of the Poor in Washington D.C., and even foundations in Ethiopia helping build and fundraise for knowledge centers. I paying it forward is always like been a thing for me. So being in Web3 and being able to use storytelling and use this intentionality and use these tools to then uplift and help other communities that I have like ties to has been like now what I feel not only is like a great opportunity to do, but I also feel like it's a responsibility to do because I've learned so much here. And it's like, okay, well, we can actually apply and use these tools in a way we couldn't in traditional music.
Sure.
So that's kind of just where what leads
Nice.
us here today, and kind of just what fuels some of this social impact stuff I'm on in Web3. And yeah, that's a
That's
very
perfect.
long-winded intro, but
No, that's a
that's
perfect intro
a
because it
bit of
really highlights sort of like your overall journey being in so many different pockets in so many different
mm-hmm.
communities, and there's a reason why you've had the success that you've had. One, your story is very unique. Your background is very unique, and you've been able to navigate like the social capital element of finding your community in a world that's new, that's fresh, that's confusing to many.
Yeah.
And one thing that I try to
Very.
highlight on the podcast is I wanna like pick your brain on some tips because there's a lot of artists that are trying to navigate the space, and
Mm-hmm.
you seem to have figured it out for the most part. How do you sort of go by navigating an environment that you're unfamiliar with, right? Such as Web
Yeah.
three.
Yeah, I compare it to like everything is a learning process, right? Everything that you initially try is going to make you uncomfortable. Like when you rode your bike for the first time, you were a little scared, but once you got it, you got it. And I think that having that kind of mindset when approaching something like this, because I self-admittedly say that Web3 is intimidating. It is a lot of things to know. It's an ever-changing area. So like every day are new tools, and so it's like I think just one, being kind to yourself in the process of like navigating, because I think that some people just see, especially during bull markets, just see big sales and it's just like, oh, I gotta just, people think it's like a gold mine rush, and it's like you gotta really take your time. The same way you build a house, you gotta really build your foundation and take time building that before you build the next level. You can't have the sight of the whole house, and you gotta take your time, just or else the house could fall. So like, and I think people can really tell with people who are being authentic and being genuine versus like people just in it trying to view it as a cash grab. So I would just say one thing is definitely just take your time learning, because in the long run you do yourself more good, rather than just kind of rushing in and being reckless, just DMing a lot of people and just spamming like that's too much. I think also like taking time to like look and find communities that you personally align with. For me, I took time to just kind of navigate this space, and obviously I make music NFTs, so I was looking at music and people making music. I also found a lot of like, you know, artists that have a similar perspective as me. So I started to connect with artists that would talk about the things that I like, or just even find visual art or just things that I just personally like, because you can just show some love and not need to like ask for anything. Or and one thing I will say is also, as a new person, when you go into Twitter spaces, if someone's having a drop party, everything is about time and place. So I think that I've seen people who misstep when they join Twitter spaces and then they try to shill their project when it's somebody else's drop party. Like, just you can show up and support somebody without needing something from them, and then
Right.
people will then eventually ask what you do just because you're showing up. And the last thing I'll say is just show up. I think there isn't any like way to go about it. Like you kind of just hit the ground running when you're in it, and like it clicks for some more than others. But once you kind of find your like communities or find things that interest you, just explore that. And I think that, like I said, like the more time you take really trying to identify and know yourself, to know what you need and what you like and what you're trying to get into, then the easier it is for people to kind of formulate around that. I also just have had like the benefit of, people saw that I was trying in the space, and then
Sure.
people who saw that were like down to help. Because I think when you ask for advice, you get help, and when you ask for help, you get advice. So as somebody that didn't ask for help, I just kind of said, hey, because I'm doing the work. I'm doing the work of learning, I'm doing the work of showing up. And if I have a simple question that doesn't take long for you to kind of, I had people like Andre O'Shea, or shout out to like Black Dave, shout out to Stones the Organic, shout out to Latasha. These were people that early on saw what I was doing, and they were down to like help me because I was helping myself, and I was genuine about it. So it's all about showing that, and I think people who want to see you do are going to be those people to help also
Right.
support you. But it takes that intention, it takes that time, it takes that showing up so people know that you're serious. And I think
Right.
those are things that I would start with people, like like start there, and I think from there you kind of find your way in it organically.
Makes
Just
sense.
yeah, man.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I think at some point you're gonna have to write out a playbook too, because to date, how many NFTs have you sold to date? Music NFTs?
uh at least like 150 or 160 at this point.
What
um
was your first one?
My first one, shout out to Don Jai. We did on Foundation. It was a 15 to 30-second animation that he did of
Mm,
portals timed to a song, or synced to a song I did called Parallel Timelines. Oh
done.
wow, I'm just realizing, this is mad unrelated, but like the remix of that song featuring Mick Jenkins dropped a year ago
Wow.
yesterday or today, I
Wow.
think. So
Crazy.
like the day we're recording this, I'm like,
Damn.
oh, that's because that also
Monumental.
was that
Yeah.
was because he also, like, we also connected, and then we ended up dropping the remix, and then we did NFTs with that remix as well. So like that was on Zora, I think, and then
Right.
I think we did like two on Zora or something like that. But
Makes
yeah,
sense. And I
so
know, like your background, how you grew up was very unique, and I think you've sort of paid that forward in terms of people understanding what you're about, the music that you
mm-hmm,
create, the image that you've sort of like put upon yourself when you're communicating the things that you care about.
mm-hmm,
And one of the biggest things, and it's sort of like why I wanted to do this conversation, is sort of like where do music NFTs meet social impact initiatives, right?
uh-huh,
And it's super important, I know, and it's a very sensitive topic to you as well, which I actually wanna understand better, because I'm not you. I didn't
yeah,
grow up in a way that you grew up, and I'm trying to understand like why you feel so aligned. Number one, with this initiative, right, that you're pushing towards, and
mm-hmm.
sort of like the context behind that.
Yeah, man. Like I'm from Tacoma Park, Maryland, so it's an environment. At the time I was growing up, because gentrification's a thing now, so that a lot of people that were there, like, aren't anymore. But growing up, it was a very active environment. That's on the borderline of DC and Maryland. So I had to unfortunately grow up very fast, I feel. So I normalized a lot of what I was seeing, whether that was heavy police interventions, whether it was like just street shit. There's just a lot of, like, it was very fast paced. So I had a weird duality growing up where I'm from the projects. I was in Park Ritchie on Maple Avenue. And two and two buildings next door was the elementary school I went to, where I was a straight A student. So going from the projects, like, or being in the projects, but then like being one of the only Black people, if not the only, like, in a academic space, was just this weird duality. Like, people would, so it was very hard to kind of like, I was overexposed to just kind of seeing both sides of like this world as a young kid. And I think that also, just having to be a responsible person at a young age, just because I just picked up on how things were moving and what I was seeing. And whether that's experiences like being assumed a drug dealer at 6 years old and being handcuffed in elementary school, to a table, whether that's having police break into my house multiple times, one of which I've had guns pointed, what as a child, whether that's seeing my brothers or seeing my family be harassed by law enforcement. Like, it's something like and it's crazy is that I said, like, my elementary school was two buildings to the right. The police station was right next to the elementary school, and this is all in the same street. So it was just like it was just very like, it was very like active, so kind of having to be smart about how you move and things was just something, again, as a kid, I've been accustomed to. And unfortunately, you see, a lot of people like go down the roads of like you know, being arrested, going to jail, getting killed, overdosing, like just all of that was going on around me growing up, and I had to navigate a lot of that. And music was that thing for me that, like, as a first generation, American, my parents saw music as a hobby, not as like something to ever do, because they wanted me to be a doctor. That was like the roadmap for me. So I was, doing pre-med at Howard University. I was working at a hospital as a CNA and retirement homes, working with multiple patients a day, and meanwhile doing music. And they were seeing that music was a thing, but like it was the thing that kept me safe. It would be like, go to either get in this car and ride with the older homies, or
Right.
stay home and make beats. And like it would be every time I picked music, I'd find myself in a situation where, oh man, you avoided getting pulled over and like all this shit happening, or you avoided like fights going on, or you invited like, oh, someone died, or like, like it was things like that happening. So almost like, and you kind of get numb to it after a while because of how normal it was. So like it was traveling, and music was the thing that allowed me to travel, that having conversations with people and getting into different spaces and realizing, wow, like a lot of the shit that I've seen is not normal in other places. So, and I, as an older person reflecting and kind of looking back, I saw that Maryland was, at the time of my growing up, had one of the highest incarceration rates for young Black men, from like 18 to 25. And that kind of just validated a lot of what I was going through. Even to this day, I go home and I still get harassed by law enforcement because I look a certain way. And, that it really made things difficult growing up, let alone when we moved to a new neighborhood thinking that things would get better. It wasn't. It was just as bad. So it was kind of just like, if I don't do something about this, like, or at least change up how I'm moving around it all, like, it's not going to be good for just me. So I made a conscious decision to kind of just pivot from a lot of things, because I think that, I recognized early that like you can't make everybody happy. And sometimes like there was a cultural like, misunderstanding. Like my parents didn't realize how real it was getting around like our neighborhood. Like they didn't realize that I around like stick up kids, like robbing houses, or like I was around a lot of shit like that, like they just didn't understand. And I kind of was like, I got to do me. I've been like kind of on my own, and like at least financially independent since I was like 17, 18, and I didn't want to be a burden to my family. So I kind of took it upon myself to always be smart about how I move. And again, like I see like, you hear the saying, be the change you want to see, right? And a
Right.
lot of these experiences are just so normal to me that like, it was when I eventually moved to California, I realized it was even, the grass ain't greener sometimes. Like, so like just a lot of the hardships of being an independent artist on your own. Like I was homeless out here. I was like sleeping at parks sometimes, or just like fucking like couch surfing, trying to figure it out. But music was this thing that always just kept me safe and kept me in a place where I can heal from like a lot of what I've been dealt with, and what I've seen and what I've witnessed. Um and yeah, basically that's part of like, I guess, some of the inspiration behind why I want to pay it forward. I have a lot of friends right now who are incarcerated. I got homies who are dead off of this shit. Like I got people who are in situations where even when you come back home from jail, you go back to jail because you don't have opportunities, because you're a felon, or because you have limited resources just coming out. And like I think that in California, for instance, there are laws that prevent discrimination if you have a felony or if you have a misdemeanor. But in other places, especially in Maryland, they don't give a damn about that. It's just like, nope, did you think you could get a job? So it just kind of like leads to people getting back into what they initially did to get them in jail, and then they go back, and then it's
Mm.
for a lengthier sentence because it's a violation of sorts, and then they have to pay more money for a lawyer to then try to fight that. But then usually they don't even have the money to do that, so then they're like trying to then do what they did that got them in trouble to pay for a lawyer to get them out of the thing that they're initially in trouble with. And it's a cycle that has been something I've seen so much. And it's something that like, if we don't do anything about like recidivism, and we don't treat certain cases like they are like not all criminal charges. Like some of these are like petty misdemeanors, or like having possession of like weed or something, or having like just little things that like aren't like non-violent, like, but people who can't afford even bail to come home from like these things end up sitting waiting for their trial for like a year. I have homies who have been sitting in jail for like a year waiting just to get a trial. So then it's like that eventually gets, you know, taken off of your ultimately lengthier sentence. But ultimately, it's just like, if someone doesn't have a couple $1,000s to come home, they're stuck. And some people are like, you know, you're SOL. And it's like we're continuously, even in 2022, still seeing these like really outdated structures of like how we're treating and how we're looking at nonviolent crimes. Sometimes people just need therapy. Sometimes people just need like real resources to like do better and come back home and be productive members of society. But if we don't even give them a chance, or like it's a fucked up game. It really is. And like, as someone that also puts money on books of people who are incarcerated right now, I can tell you it's not cheap to be in jail.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like, I say that to say, yeah, this hits home in a way that like I'm speaking for a lot of people who are literally like who can't speak like this. Like, there are people who are like during COVID. You know how crazy jail was for people who are during COVID. Like, if you had COVID, you were put in isolation in Maryland. Like, they put you in ISO. Like, that's for people who get in trouble. Like,
Right.
you're being scolded because you caught something that you couldn't control. Like, it blows my mind. Like, even the ability to like just to try to see somebody, it takes certain facilities. It's such a hassle. It pains me because, again, I know a lot of people who right now, like, I got homies who are doing 15 years off of a decision they made in 15 seconds. When you make decisions off of your emotions, and some of that isn't like rooted in, some of that's rooted in trauma, some of that's rooted in like the way someone's grown up, like, doesn't make them a terrible person. It just means like it's unfortunate, and like there are ways to help treat nonviolent crimes for like to like help and like make people like, I don't know, productive members of society. That's just generally like what inspired me to like do this type of work well
Mm-hmm.
before Web3. And like telling these stories is because I feel like a responsibility at this point to speak on my truths and the things I've been accustomed to. Like, I just dropped a record, Jansport Freestyle, where I'm talking about the police running into my house on Black Friday a few years ago. And they didn't even have a warrant. They didn't have anything. They just ran in my house while I was half drunk and half asleep. And my mom is banging on my door, panicking that they've swept my first floor. I had to wake up the next morning and just see wreckage. I had to see like my couches turned and see like papers and just it was just a mess. And then just for them to say we had the wrong house, oh, like, sorry, file a complaint if you feel away, and that's it. That's all that happens. And it's just like, you know, you don't want to file a report because they'll come look at your house. They'll be like, they're the guys that reported us. Like, it was very, very uncomfortable growing up and living in Maryland because it was a lot of this, like, sometimes by affiliation and just because I look a certain way, it prevented me from even doing little things like shopping at certain places. Or I'm driving and I get pulled over because I drive a Lexus and I guess I don't look like a Lexus, and I get asked if I have dead bodies in my car. I get asked if I have, like, you wouldn't believe the questions I get. Like, even as my most recent trip back home, like a month ago, I still get pulled over and like all these things. And
Oh shit.
you know, I say that to say like this is a very real thing for me where it comes from. So being that change that I want to see, it stems from being in Web3, seeing all this abundance, seeing all these ways that we have these tools that empower us as creatives. Yes, but we also have an ability to, again, like, make revenue off of our music in a way that we haven't in traditional music. But then also we can use that to help things that we, part of my friends, give a fuck about, and I give a
Yeah.
fuck about this. So like,
So
that's
let's talk about that for a
yeah.
second, because I want to understand, like, why is Web
I
three
said
the
a
perfect
lot of shit
platform?
right now. So
No, and it's all really, no. I know everything you said is all really relevant because
yeah,
these issues are very near and dear to you, right? You obviously feel a certain
yeah.
alignment with it because you've experienced it yourself through family, friends, etc. I'm trying to understand, why is
Mm-hmm.
Web3 the perfect platform to target social justice? from your
Because I
perspective?
think that like traditional music doesn't care about this stuff in a certain way. They care about it if it's commercially successful, but in terms of telling these stories and trying to drive conversation, that's not something that's more or less like, it's cool to do, but it's not something that I think carries the same weight that Web3 does, where people do care about this intentionality, do care about people putting in work, and do care about ultimately community. And I think that if I'm building a community of people that I want to, that align with things that I align with, then I want that to reflect and be something that, again, is bigger than myself. I think all of this shit is, I have no ego in this shit because I come from like not having much at all. I come from very humble beginnings. So like being in a space where there's, again, so much of all of this ETH and all this stuff going on, it's like I don't need all of this. Like it's like what can we do to really drive something more impactful than ourselves? And that was a question I had to ask myself. And it was an intention that I kind of wanted to bring into Web3, but it takes a lot of time, again, to like really build towards something like this. So just being a good student in this game, soaking up what I've learned, and wanting to now pivot in a more like a more found like, I guess, in more of this way where I'm like, cool, like let's start to really push this social impact stuff. I think my entire career to this point, if you listen to anything I've put out, ties all this in. So like this is very authentic and very in line with everything that I've done in my life to this point.
Right.
So it just made sense to kind of like, and I think that, again, people like yourself, people who hear this and hear like what I'm speaking on, that resonate, or just even just see that I'm very serious about it and want to get behind what I'm doing. Like, it's not like I'm trying to be a role model or like anything. It's not like a so holier than thou. It's like, nah, like I'm in the trenches trying to do this work because I want to see more of it. And if I can't complain and say we need more social impact in Web3 if I'm not doing it, like I can't, you know what I mean? It's like I can't say like I need to see more of this, and then it's like if I'm not doing it, then I just kind of want to lead by that example. Like if I'm
Right.
talking it, then I need to do it, and
Sure.
that's I've been doing it, but now it's like here's a new way to do it, and like here's a new way to do it in a way that feels good. It feels good to like wake up and think how I can like try to help people beyond myself, because it's not about me. This, like, all these causes, all these things I'm trying to do is bigger than myself. So I think that's why I think it works in Web3, because it's easier for people to come into this with no ego and just hear stories and hear conversation, and like it's like, cool, like what do we do with these conversations? Like let's have some
Yeah.
action behind these
Yeah.
conversations, and it we just now have tools to do this stuff more like
I agree.
tangibly. So I
And
think it's a perfect place.
NFTs are the perfect tool for storytelling. And
Yeah.
I think Heno, you really nailed the head. Like NFTs are a tool. It's how you use them to sort of build community, build purpose, and bring people together. And you talked about sort of like organizing projects, and you have a huge project coming up, right? With a music release schedule featuring 5 songs, 3-part short film, where
Four,
you're
four, four,
donating
four, four.
4-part short
No, no,
film.
no, no, no.
Excuse me.
Four songs, 3-part short
Oh,
film.
okay, 4 songs. All right, I see one that's also in the meantime EP that's going to be released on DSPs, right? So maybe that's like
Yeah.
just a DSP only hit. So 4 songs that you're going to be releasing through a Web3 format, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have a 3-part short film.
Mm-hmm.
You're donating 50% of all the revenue that's generated through ETH to some organizations that you align with,
Mm-hmm.
right? That I'd love to hear your perspective. And I see the Bail Project. I see the Maryland Alliance for Justice Reform.
Mm-hmm.
I see Baltimore Action Legal Team to sort of help with like the back end of stuff, right? And I guess the whole entire thing is sort of like I'm tired of being hyper surveilled, right?
Yeah. That's what we're building towards.
All right,
Um
did I nail that?
yeah, it's a good gist. I would say so. It's, yeah, 4 records. There's an EP that I'm putting out called In the Meantime. It'll be
Okay,
put out on DSPs in January, and that's a 9
got
song
it,
project.
got it.
4 of those songs are going to be minted in this upcoming collection, with Andre O'Shea doing 3D animations that are paired with the 4 songs. And then we will also be doing a 3-part short film coinciding the musical experience, where The rare objects, which are the 3D animations that are being made, will actually be in the short film. Like we'll have objects that people will collect, a part of this collection, that then they get to see in real, in a film, in something that I think is cool to kind of, you know, be a cool use case on the creative side of just, I have a thing, an NFT that I can see in application in another type of
Got it.
media. And I just thought that that was really cool to incorporate in the story and add themes to things that people will see later. But the ultimate roadmap is all this is going towards my forthcoming album called I'm Tired of Being Hypersurveilled. It's going to come out late 2023. And yeah, like I said, like given that what we've been speaking on is just, it's all tied to kind of just surveillance, how its real implications on marginalized communities, as well as just what it comes with, you know, any innovation in tech has pros and cons. So it's more just a statement project, just saying like, it's not a solution to it. It's just speaking my reality of that, and giving perspective as to why I feel this way. And there will also be some very cool stuff that we do on the social impact side with that album, as well as just some cool like VR stuff I can't get into all the way, but it's gonna be a really cool experience. So that's the roadmap between now and I guess next year.
All
Really
right.
excited to just
Wow.
start it. And
So
also the last
yeah,
thing I want to
go
say,
ahead. Go
sorry,
ahead. Go ahead.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
surveillance is just a very heavy topic. So instead of just kind of leading with that album, I like this EP, this short film, this collection, all these things. I just want to kind of be the thing that I'm like spoon feeding you like this bigger idea, that then when we get to the album, you'll be like, you'll really kind of, I want there to be like a vehicle, like of sorts, that people can kind of be along this journey, be in the car while we drive and get to that point. So this is just the early part of the roadmap.
There's a lot coming.
It's
That's
a
it's a
lot
big
coming.
project. It's a big project. A
I can't
film,
say who's on it.
a a 3-part film. Like, when
Yes.
have you seen that be sort of curated? Your ability to sort of like mix different means and mediums of communication and art is sort of like the most fascinating thing to me, because it's not just music, it's also film, right? And it's like there's an audiovisual element to it, right? And like you've sort of showed me stuff on behind the scenes that I was just like, wow, this is legit. Like this is really exciting. And
Thank you,
yeah,
man.
I'll be collecting this. Like you have my support. I love betting on the jockey, so I've been betting on you for a minute now across your other stuff, and
Thank you,
I'm
brother. Thank
excited to
you.
see this. Excited to see this vision of yours and this purpose of yours come to life. And I commend you for using your platform of all things you could be preaching, of all things you could be doing. You're deciding to focus on this, right? And I think that says a lot about you. I'm curious for others that want to get involved, because I'm sure after hearing this episode, or I hope, I'm not sure, I hope other people may feel aligned the same way you feel aligned with this
Mm-hmm.
vision. How could somebody else join the fight? How can somebody else be a part of what you're doing? What kind of help are you looking for?
Man, I think I'm the type of person where asking for help is always like a lot for me to do, but I
All right,
think it's one of those
what kind of
things.
feedback or advice can we get?
Yeah.
That your initial.
I think it's one of those things of like, that's a funny point. I see the callback. No. Just from the standpoint of like, if people feel aligned with this, I would hope that people would maybe check out the Telly site that we built out, where like we have all the information of like just our intentions, what the goals are, the organizations we want to support. Luckily, the Bail Project does take ETH; they take crypto, so like just the ability to just do that all on chain is great. And the other two organizations that you said, the Baltimore Action Legal Team and the Maryland Alliance for Justice Reform, don't at the moment take crypto, but we would help them either make wallets, that's the goal, or just for future things that they should be doing, or just give them USD from just converting. And that I think supporting this collection would be really great, because like I said, 50% of not only the primaries, 50% of the entire collection. I made a wallet specifically with this initiative in mind, that all the splits will go to this, and everything will be on record of like where funds are going with full
Right.
transparency. And again, this is a cause, and this is something that personally aligns to me, in a way that this isn't the only type of thing that I'm going to be doing. And I plan on also just for the coming 2023 year, I plan on donating about 5% of all of my Web3 primary revenue to this same initiative. Just wanting to, again, be somebody that like is not only talking the talk, but is very much in the trenches doing the work. And I think that like that comes from just, again, personal alignment, but also uh, a feeling that I need to be more responsible with what I'm doing in this space. And not to say I haven't been, but it's like, I want to step into this a bit more, and I want to be
Yeah.
like, I guess I don't think I'm pioneering in any way. I think there are people that might be doing this type of stuff too, but I do feel like, at least in the purposes that I'm doing it in, with recidivism and bail assistance, like those things, I feel like I'm pioneering, and I
Yeah.
want to continue to just push for it. And I'd hope that anyone that feels that way can just reach out to me, because I'm super down for conversations that are around paying it forward and being a good use case of like how we can take this technology, take the creations and the art that we love to make, and just have some good element to it beyond ourselves. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
all the
I love
music
it,
will be
man.
on Sound XYZ too.
Cool.
And yeah, we've built out a telly page. So shout out to both of them, and shout out to you, Levy, for like just being like such a solid person to bounce ideas off of. And even just with Bello and using the analytics to help, kind of figure out how we want to maneuver with this collection has been pretty helpful. And
Sick.
you know
So happy.
shameless plug, anyone that y'all got to tap in with this man. He's really on
I
to some shit.
appreciate you. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you. So I wanna sort of sum this up,
Mm-hmm.
because on November 1st you have your upcoming audio visual collection in
Mm-hmm.
collaboration with Andre Oshia, right?
O'Shea, yeah, Andre O'Shea.
O'Shea, excuse me, and that's sort of like for the forthcoming EP titled "In the Meantime."
Yes.
This EP in the meantime is part of the larger album called "I'm Tired of Being Hypersurveilled."
Mm-hmm.
And then 50% of the sales generated from In the Meantime will be placed in a wallet dedicated to supporting these organizations, combating a lot of these issues that we talked about
Mm-hmm.
throughout the last few minutes. And then yeah, I guess I wanna sort of like wrap this up, because I'm also citing your Mirror article that you published, which if you haven't read it yet, I'll link it in the episode show notes. But I want to sort of read this last part in the closing remarks, because it's like it gave me the chills, right? And you're like, closing remarks, in full transparency, I never really saw myself living this long. Stepping into Web3 and finding my way in music has presented me with an opportunity to do something meaningful and beyond myself or any ego. Paying it forward is a big part of everything that I do, and to be in the space amongst all this newfound abundance, I see a responsibility to be, or to also be, a good steward and with said abundance. I'm not perfect, nor do I aspire to be a role model or a person that acts holier than thou. I'm a real ass person that sees real issues in my community and wants to be a part of some real change. And I think if there's this element of wanting to be a part of change, there's no better platform than Web3. This whole energy of wanting to do something innovative, of doing something bigger than ourselves, of being a part of this aligned purpose of decentralization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Building audiences that we own, being creators that we own the data, we're the platforms, we have the control, we have the power. It very much works in tandem with everything that a lot of us already stand for, and there's similarities and themes within it all. So I'm super excited, Heno. I'm really excited that you chose Mint to also share this story. And I guess before we wrap up, any last words, anything to say?
Man, you really just hit the nail on the head with that just bringing up the closing remarks. And I've spoken to that in this interview for sure. But uh, closing remarks are just, I think I just want people to realize that, like, when it comes to this space, I think I see this as an opportunity, like I said, to just do something bigger than myself. And I think that, man, I have a lot of things that could be my closing remarks, but like you just ended it perfectly with just like, I'm a real ass person that's trying to make some real change that I just personally am aligned to. But I I'd hope that like anyone that feels that way about anything that they want to speak on might be inspired to do the same. And there are many issues, like I've seen DAOs that are doing like climate control stuff. I've seen like they're it's like or climate change. I'm sorry, and like they're just different causes that people want to get behind and support, and that doesn't have to be everybody. It's just something that I personally am aligned to, and I don't force it on anybody either. As long as it's authentic to you and you feel like you want to do something and step up, kind of be the change you want to see. I didn't see enough of
Sure.
what I'm doing, so I wanted to do it, and
There you go.
I think that's what Web3 kind of allows us to do. Is like we have opportunities to do things. It could be for a different cause, it could be for whatever, but just also experiment. Like I just love experimenting in this bear market. I think that like this bear market has really allowed us to see who's really about this Web3 shit and like not just here for the bull market. So like being in the trenches doing the work as we've been with ETH this low, it's like you can tell that these causes and these things that people are building are real. And I want people to know that about me, that like I'm here for the long haul and I'm really like invested in like this roadmap that we're building. So just appreciate everybody for any support that they feel obligated or not obligated, feel obliged or feel like compelled to want to do. And my DMs are open, so feel free to tap in if you feel aligned in any way. And yeah, just my last thing is thank you, Adam Levy. Like you are just like a very, very, you're just as nice as you are in person as you are on Zoom calls, as you are on calls, just all the things. And I appreciate you just seeing what I'm trying to do, and I feel seen just being able to share my story. So I think that I'll
I
leave it at
appreciate
that.
you, bro. Energy reciprocated is energy sort of like received, right? And you've gifted me with joy in sort of using my platform to give you a platform, and I'm excited for what you're doing. And we'll have to do this again soon.
Oh, absolutely.
So guys, go check him out on Twitter. Go check out the project. Excuse me. I'll include some links. And till next time.
Yeah, stay blessed, stay hydrated, and watch out for bears.
Yes, stay hydrated and watch out for bears. I love that.
Yeah, got to.